Welcome to Folklore on the Rocks.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Logan.
I'm Lindsay.
And this is Folklore on the Rocks. We've got something really special this episode for you. It's a nice, cold, wintry day here in Utah, and I hope everyone's having a great December. Lindsay, what have we got for everyone today?
Well, we have a creature feature today on Krampus.
Yeah, I know we said that we would do kind of the second stringers, some of the kind of backseat ones, the ones that don't get all the attention, but the Krampus is near and dear to my heart. He's Krampus and he's an old buddy. He's an old buddy of mine, and I don't know, I really wanted it to happen. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for letting Krampus be our feature tonight.
You know, we have to. It's our first Christmas with the podcast, and he's just so much fun that it would be tragic not to do him.
It absolutely would.
It would.
And also, I wouldn't want to tempt his wrath by passing him over. That's not a great way to start off the new year.
Well, once you guys learn the kind of things that the accoutrement he has with him, you wouldn't want to piss him off either.
Yeah, and so it'll be fun. It's kind of holiday themed, and yes, while he is a little bit more mainstream than some of the other creatures we've done, he is still welcome on the show.
Yeah, it'll be great. So first, let's start off like we always do with our cocktail. Tonight, we are drinking one of our favorite winter drinks. Logan and I have this pretty much every single Christmas.
It's a holiday tradition in our little group of friends.
Well, actually, we don't just have it around the holidays either. We just kind of do it whenever it's cold outside.
Yeah.
We have a friend who makes it all the time, and it is delicious, and he brings it, and it's gone super fast. And it's a German Austrian mulled wine drink that's called Glühwein.
Glühwein.
So it's German for glowing wine, which is kind of what it makes you feel. And
historically, in our little group of friends, it does immediately precede feats of strength, running out into the snow. It's really delicious, and it really warms you all the way to the very core on a cold winter's day.
Mm-hmm. It really, really does. So it's a holiday drink. Often it's like an after skiing drink that you'll know as tourists if you go over to Germany or Austria or like the Alpine regions.
Yeah, if you're living up the après-ski lifestyle, have a Glühwein.
Guys, so you might be familiar if you are a skier. I am not. I'm just a drinker. But honestly, it's delicious. It warms you up really, really fast. You can find it all over that area during the winter time. So we highly encourage you to make this. I'm gonna kind of explain a little bit about it just because I feel like it's valuable for you to know.
It should be noted that this is a hot drink, unlike some of the other ones we've had, and instead of just mixing it, we kind of have to cook it. So, Lindsay, tell us, how is Glühwein made?
Yeah, it definitely takes a little more prep. So, I'm just going to read the recipe off to you and then let you know, like, a few little things about making it. So, it's 3/4 the cup of water, 3/4 the cup of white sugar, a cinnamon stick, 1 full orange, and 10 whole cloves, and then 1 full bottle of red wine. So in a saucepan, you combine the water, the sugar, and the cinnamon stick, and then you bring it to a boil, you reduce the heat, and you just kind of simmer it for a while. Then you'll cut the orange in half. You're going to squeeze all of the juice into that simmering water, and then you're going to take the whole cloves and push them into the orange rind on the outside of the orange and stick all of that in the water as well. You'll continue simmering that for like 30 minutes or so until it's really thick and syrupy. And at that point, then you pour in the wine and you heat it until it's steaming but not simmering. You're going to remove the clove-studded orange halves. You might want to strain it at this point in case any of them came out. You don't want someone drinking a clove. They're kind of pokey and that wouldn't feel great. But you do want to serve them in mugs, or if you use glasses, you want to preheat them, like run them under cold or hot water because cold glasses are going to break, and that's no fun for anybody
Yeah.
because red wine everywhere is super stainy.
It's a great way to make a
Not
mess
great.
and ruin some Glühwein.
Yes, and you want to drink that. You don't want to have it all over the ground. So you do want to drink it while it's hot, though. It tastes much better hot. Some people use orange juice instead of water if they want like a more citrusy vibe. Do note that it makes it much sweeter, and there's already a ton of sugar in this. So if you do that, I would recommend doing less sugar, like maybe half a cup instead.
Take a little break on the sugar. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it does get very, very sweet. Mm-hmm. The other thing about it is that it does settle. So drink it right after serving for best results.
We also recommend using like a Merlot or a Cabernet Sauvignon, or like a Shiraz, or like my personal favorite is Zinfandel. But you can just kind of use your favorite red wine. Cheap wine, like Yellowtail, Barefoot, totally fine. Box
Does the
wine
job
is
just fine.
Some people have even said that it's better if it's cheaper, honestly. Like they've tried it with expensive and not expensive, and the cheaper was better. I mean, it's up to you. You can also add shots to it, like brandy or a triple sec. But you probably want to try it first, and then add the shot in afterward. You can always do that after.
If you're gonna get creative, get a baseline first. You know.
Yeah, taste it first, and then see what you think, because it is potent in and of itself. It really, really is. It's a very strong drink that's very easy to drink a lot of very quickly. Because it's hot, it like the alcohol in it ends up taking effect much more quickly. So you definitely get drunker faster, which is nice when it's cold outside, you know.
Oh, yeah. You want the effects to kick in right away.
Mm-hmm. And then if you end up with leftovers, which you might if you end up like doubling or tripling or quadrupling the recipe, which is pretty easy to do. You just, up the measurements and stuff. If you do that, you can just stick the leftovers in the fridge and heat them up later on, which is awesome. And then, like, if you're taking it somewhere, crock pot is awesome for just keeping it warm throughout the night because it does cool off and it's much, much better warm. So anybody who is from that area or has vacationed in that area can tell you that it is a divine drink that is basically the nectar of the alpine gods.
Yes, it is something very special. Oh, cheers, Linz. This is a great choice for tonight.
Yeah, it's delicious. Okay, so real quick, we're going to move into our promo for the night. And we are going to quickly play a little promo for you. For tonight, we have a podcast called Dear Murder Street. So this is a podcast by two sisters, and they are so much fun. They do a fictional, paranormal, and true crime advice podcast.
Oh, okay.
Which is
so it's
so original.
Not just true crime, but it's a little bit of everything. Okay.
It probably leans more towards like the paranormal, honestly.
Okay.
Which is great. But basically they encourage listeners to write or call in with characters that the listeners have created and like stories that have supernatural issues, and then they'll play it or read it and they'll respond with advice, doing research of their own to like figure out what they think the issue might be, right? So it's kind of like a fun cross between Dear Abby and like an audio drama.
Okay.
Very original idea. We're going to quickly play that for you right here.
Are you in desperate need of advice, but maybe your problems are too strange, too scary, and too shameful for the average advice show?
We are the Carroll sisters, hosts of the paranormal and true crime advice show, Dear Murder Street, and we are here to help.
Do you suspect that your very shy and polite neighbor may, in fact, be a serial killer?
Is there a ghost in your bedroom watching you change?
Were you catfished by someone who turned out to be a very sad, very lonely extraterrestrial?
Is there a bunyip living in the pond behind your house?
Call and leave a message at 845-418-6681 or write to us at dearmurderstreet@gmail.com.
Visit dearmurderstreet.com for more information and find us wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back. I hope you guys give them a listen. They're really fun.
They do sound fun, yeah.
So let's talk about Krampus.
Where should we start about Krampus? First, where does the Krampus come from? Let's pretend like we've never heard of the Krampus before. He's just an ordinary monster, just one of those ones that you grab at random out of an encyclopedia or a big almanac of monsters. Hey, Krampus, where is he? Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Lindsay, but Germany, Austria, Scandinavia, right around there. He's definitely a cold weather monster.
Yeah, very alpine, very Germanic, basically. Just those regions.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably people out there that haven't heard about Krampus.
I'm sure. I would hope so. If we can bring something new, awesome.
Right? Yeah. I mean, there might be. We have listeners from all over the world, and we know that Krampus has become very popular in the media recently. Here, at least in the US. And so I don't know how that really translates around the rest of the world. So it could very well be that, you guys don't know about him and now you're gonna. Yay! Okay, so we've talked about kind of where he's located.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what he looks like.
Okay.
So he is kind of this goat human/demon hybrid. So think like satyrs of Greek mythology, right?
That's a perfect place to start.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually working on a Krampus kind of sculpture model that I'm going to put in our Logan's
cool.
Corner section.
Ooh,
and
so you can access that through Patreon if you're
yes,
a patron.
Indeed. and most of the concept art ones are satyrs indeed. I love the digitigrade legs that go with it.
Yeah, and so a satyr, it's basically the top half is a human man, and then the bottom half is like goat legs, but he's walking on two legs, basically.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Just to be kind of a detail nerd, it should be noted he typically has kind of cloven hooves like a goat or satyr. However, sometimes he's depicted as having one clawed foot and one hoof. Just kind of depends on your interpretation. I don't get a whole lot from the stories that he's a shapeshifter. It feels like he's pretty consistent, but it's open to interpretation a little bit.
Definitely.
So he's got some kind of leaping, powerful, bounding legs, sometimes with hooves, sometimes not. And what are some of his other notable features? What's he got?
Mm-hmm. So he's got goat horns. He's got big, long, giant fangs. He's got probably his most prominent feature is his very, very long, protruding tongue.
Yeah, if you see any illustrations of him, that's always what you see. He looks. That's kind of how you can tell the difference at a glance between, a devil and a satyr and a Krampus. Demon. Oh, Krampus! Oh, it's the one with the tongue and the wild look in his eyes. And
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So sometimes people say that it's forked, but in most of the illustrations that I've seen, it's been just long and pointed. Mm-hmm. Like Gene Simmons' tongue, but like 3 times the size.
Yeah.
Or something. And he does have like a serpentine tail too. Yeah. That in some illustrations he's like grabbing kids with it.
So I haven't seen
as one does
the prehensile
it's not super common.
But
it's not super common in the illustrations, but I have seen a few.
It's a fun detail.
Yeah, I know. I feel like if you're gonna be able to have a prehensile tail, why not? Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's a pretty scary image we just conjured up. He's definitely got some monstrous features to him. He's got kind of a humanoid torso and arms and hands. And so if he has hands, he gets some props, of course.
Oh, definitely.
And
to do the things he does, he needs,
for Krampusing.
Exactly, for Krampusing.
Yes.
I like this.
And he carries around a bundle of birch sticks that he uses to beat bad children. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he's got horsehair to whip them. He's got chains and bells. And on his back, he's got either a big sack and sometimes a wicker basket. And it's said that he can actually take the worst children away with him to the underworld.
For the whole next year.
Yeah, if you're really
Until next time.
if you're really a naughty child, you get to go with the Krampus. And
Don't be a bad kid, guys.
yeah, I love a good
Gonna
cautionary
regret it.
tale. That's
Right? Exactly. See, I mean, it's much more frightening if Krampus is the one that's watching you when you're sleeping.
Yeah,
Like Santa, he sees you when you're sleeping.
same idea. Yeah.
Yeah, but
And-
Krampus is a lot more frightening that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you hear, oh, you're going to get a lump of coal in your stocking. Okay, who cares? Coal? Yeah, big freaking deal. If you hear, well, a goat-hoofed demon man is going to come out of the shadows and beat you with a birch stick until you promise to be good, or he's going to take you away. Yeah, that's a much stronger deterrent.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of wonder, like, this whole take kids away for a year, if that has anything to do with kids. I don't know how to express this. Like,
Oh, it's okay.
Kids disappearing?
Maybe. Well, I do think that, history...
Murder, perhaps?
Perhaps, yeah.
I don't know.
I do think history is full of a lot of stories of children disappearing. The immediate one that comes to mind is the Pied Piper of Hamelin.
Yeah.
And this idea that children can be taken away from parents, that's a very scary thing. Not only for the children. For children, it's the most scary thing. But it's also terrifying for parents. So it's a good... it's a valid threat when... Not to say that anybody should do that. It's not an effective way to get things done. But yeah,
No, for sure. And I
it
kind of
works in
think
the story.
maybe it has something to do with, I mean, death was a lot more prevalent during the centuries where Krampus was very, like where that was practiced, I guess.
Yeah, it was just part of life. It's a hard part of the world to live in, and
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking maybe there's a neighbor and that kid dies, but the parents don't want to talk about it because their child has died.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next door neighbor parents are like, see, that's what happens if you're not a good kid. Krampus comes and takes you.
Oh, yes, perhaps.
I don't know. So there's many things it could be. It could just be a threat and have nothing to do with what I've been talking about, which is probably more likely. But there is no factual basis for this at all.
Not
So
really,
you can ignore
no.
me or you cannot, and that's fine. But we do know where his name came from.
Oh, that's a good
Or
start.
at least we're pretty sure. We're pretty sure that it comes from the word Krampen, which means claw in Old German.
Okay, my old German is not very good, but I will
Neither's
take you
mine.
for your word on that, Lindsay.
I'm just going with what the internet tells me, as we all do. Another really cool thing about him is he is said to be the son of Hel, which is the Norse goddess that rules over the realm of the dead, also called Hel, or you might have heard of it as Helheim. This would make Loki, who we all know and love, his grandfather, because Hel's dad is Loki. So Hel's pretty cool. She is like, half of her is a beautiful woman and half of her is like a dead, decayed, gross creature. And it's like split right down the middle. So like you could look at her face and half would be a beautiful woman and half would be this horrible, ugly, decayed worm food face, you know? Mm-hmm. So Hel's pretty cool. I know Logan's a giant fan of Norse mythology.
Yep, and
As
it
they
should
are his
be
people.
It should be noted that sometimes it's Hel, sometimes it's Hela. Nevertheless, it's the same character.
I think isn't Hela just in Marvel?
You do find her in a couple of translations.
Couple of the translations. Okay.
But, sometimes she is Kate Blanchett. Sometimes
And
she
that's
is not.
pretty awesome.
But I could be misquoting that, but I am fairly certain I have seen Hela around a couple of times.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I reserve the right to change my mind, and I reserve the right to get completely blown up on social media. It's fine. So much, specifically Norse mythology has been carried on into fantasy and comic books and all of those things. It's very, very inspirational. And the character of Hel and Loki, well, we all know these characters, even if it's not the literal interpretation of them from the myths.
There's a lot of conflicting stories just within the old, like, Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda. They even have conflicting stuff within them. Other stuff we find from other authors is conflicting. So a lot of Norse mythology, as popular as it is really, it could be this or it could be this. And I'm sure that you guys will see that a little bit more in the future as we do more Norse creatures. But it can get a little muddy. The waters are muddy there. We know our basic stuff, but even some of that is a little like, is that the case or is it this other thing? So a lot of what we know is just scholars kind of deciding what they think it was, which is always kind of a toss-up. But I feel like those are the ones making decently educated decisions, so I'm not super qualified to say one way or the other when they're a little bit more so, I think. But it is cool that he potentially comes from, the Norse mythology realm.
Yeah, that he has at least a little bit to do with it on there. But he's also been carried forward, very much like Santa Claus has been changed
He's
really
evolved.
by every culture that interprets and uses his image and tells that story. The Krampus has changed a little bit too. Not necessarily from the literal son of Hel and the one that's going to take away your children and or anything, but instead he almost has taken on a lighter role in Christmas, just kind of being the counterbalance to Saint Nicholas or Santa Claus.
Like with him originally being a pagan figure of folk religion, he ended up kind of getting tied to the Christian celebrations of Saint Nicholas, like you're talking about. And they kind of ended up becoming this balance of good and evil. Saint Nicholas, if you guys don't know, he was a bishop that was born in like the 3rd or 4th century, and he was from Myra, which is located in now modern day Turkey. And he was just a really very giving and generous man who ended up becoming a saint. And the translation, I think, of his name in Dutch, like of Saint Nicholas, is Sinterklaas in Dutch, which is how we came up with Santa Claus. The Santa Claus as we know it didn't come until, I can't remember what year it was, but it was like a Coca-Cola ad.
That's how he got that beautiful red suit.
And that's how the Santa we picture and that all our kids are terrified of when they go take photos with him. That's the Santa Claus that Coke came up with.
Yeah,
so
that was
that.
A marketing device.
But it worked really well because look at us now, like 100 years later, probably. We still have Santa everywhere.
Now, unfortunately, the soda pop that decided to commercialize on Krampus's image didn't last very long. It tasted bitter. It was black, and I think it was just called Ichor. Is that correct? Carbonated Ichor? No?
I have no idea.
No, it didn't happen. I'm just making it up as I go along.
It's like Krampus blood.
Krampus blood.
His Ichor. I think it's called Ichor. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Oh, well.
This is why I looked stuff up before. Because I never know how to say anything. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what he does.
Yeah,
right?
Okay. So we know what he looks like, we know where he lives, and we kind of know where he came from. Now, first of all, it could be noted, I'm using a fair amount of gendered language. We do know that Krampus is pretty male. We haven't seen a lot of interpretations of Krampus as a female. Any of you artists out there, if you want to interpret Krampus that way, go for it. But that's to all of my readings, it's pretty consistent. Krampus is a he, and...
Yeah, and it should be noted that I didn't do a ton of research into this, but it should be noted there are multiple types of Krampus around, depending on the region. So he might be known as different names in different places. And I know that at least one of them is a woman. I think it's Frau Percha. I think I could be wrong on the name, but there are multiple places that he's known as different names. There are places where there are multiple Krampus. Krampusi, I think, is the plural. But for the purposes of this episode, Krampus is singular, just one dude hanging out with Saint Nick and
doing what he does.
Doing what he does, which is visiting naughty children. So he hangs out with Saint Nicholas. They go around to different homes, and basically they punish the kids who have misbehaved, right? This occurs on the evening of December 5th, which is called Krampusnacht.
It just happened a couple weeks ago.
It did. And he punishes kids who have misbehaved. The earliest incarnations within pagan society actually focused on adults as well. So growing up doesn't, necessarily exempt you from a visit from Krampus, which I think we could all use a little bit more of.
You're never too old to be wicked.
Right. And you probably get worse, Yeah. I mean, most people do. So something that we do want to kind of note here, though, is that he is not the anti-Santa. Right?
No, he doesn't. I kind of look at it when someone is an anti-character, the nemesis, if you will.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that he's not the Grinch. He's not out to steal Christmas and to make Christmas stop altogether.
Right.
He's not out to his end game isn't to destroy Santa Claus. He exists as a balancing measure.
Exactly.
His entire all of his shtick and all of his strength comes from balancing out the naughtiness in the world and being a reason to be a better person.
Exactly. So he's like Saint Nicholas's partner. They are the good cop and the bad cop, basically.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
He's punishing bad kids so that good can prevail. So he's establishing a social order. So he is a kind of a necessary evil that's out there. Mm-hmm. Granted, we do not condone violence against children. That should be noted. But he was there to kind of give that yin and yang vibe. He was the flip side, and they didn't want to sully St. Nicholas's image for St. Nicholas being the one that was punishing the bad kids. So they needed something else. And that's where Krampus comes in. So, the beating itself could kind of depend on what the kids did. So, if the kid was just, kind of a naughty kid, they would get beatings with the birch rods that we talked about. He'd pull their ears. And if the kid was much worse, which we've all seen a little bit of, I'm sure, in our lives, he would lead them off a cliff. He would put them in shackles, or he would put them in his basket and drag them down to hell, like we talked about, or he would drown them in ink.
Drowning in ink, that sounds really rough. As you're sinking down, you can't even see your way to the surface.
And so messy. That's all I think of.
Yeah, the cleaning bill is going to be awful.
So a customary offering would be like to offer him schnapps, which is a strong distilled fruit brandy if you're not much of a drinker, or you didn't know that.
If you're not much of a drinker, why are you listening to the show?
Because we love you and we want you to.
Yeah, everyone's welcome.
It was kind of an interesting how this tradition happened, because it was that the families would wait up and sit there, and St. Nick and Krampus would show up at their door. St. Nick would, give out nice, fun gifts, and Krampus would administer his beatings. And then they'd move on to the next house. Yeah. So they would, set up a waiting for St. Nick and Krampus,
Yeah.
Pretty interesting, I think.
And I can only imagine, for Greta, you get the wooden horse. For Hans, you get your own little fishing rod. But for Klaus, you have been very wicked this year. You get to meet the Krampus.
And out comes the birch rods.
Indeed.
So we've kind of covered Krampus and what he does and where he's from. The celebration within Central and Eastern Europe on Krampusnacht, so on December 5th, has been a huge thing for decades, if not longer, maybe even centuries. Basically, people drink lots. They dress up in hugely elaborate costumes.
Oh, they're so freaking sweet.
They're so cool.
Please,
Masks.
look, do one Google
Yes.
search if you want to find a
Krampusnacht.
visual aid on these. It puts our Halloweens to shame.
Oh, absolutely. People spend thousands of dollars on these costumes, and it's you can see every penny. They are amazing and terrifying. They're so scary. But
Also, as just a note from somebody who's worn a lot of goofy costumes over the years, I do appreciate that they incorporated a thermal element to these. They are going out in December.
true.
In Austria, it's cold.
Very
but
true.
These nice, warm, furry suits, they look plenty toasty.
yeah, they definitely do. I'm sure that they are not freezing at all in those. These are complete with like masks, pitchforks, the rusty chains we've talked about.
Oh yeah, the bells,
torches, bells, yeah, everything. And they carry around those birch stick bundles and they beat people's legs. So if you want to go somewhere where you can beat people up on their legs, which is like one of the many rules, you know, they don't want people actually getting injured, right? But if you go to these celebrations, you know that you're going to end up getting whacked in the legs a few times with some sticks.
And it's all in good fun.
Exactly. Yeah. And honestly, they do a lot more to scare and chase and beat the adults than they do the kids, which makes a lot more sense in today's society for us, you know, because somehow we realized that beating kids up is not a great thing to do. Weird how that works. They also, during these events, they have a really, really good time at a raucous event called the Krampuslauf, which is the Krampus Run. It's kind of like a parade of Krampuses, I guess.
Yeah, a parade is a pretty good way to describe it.
And honestly, so they have a really big one in Salzburg, Austria, right? But with how popular he's gotten in these past few years in the U.S., actually North America, really, they've been hosting their own here within the past few years. So like L.A., Chicago, Philadelphia, D.C., Dallas, and San Francisco, those are all places that have had like Krampusnacht celebrations or Krampus runs.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I didn't realize that they had happened in that many instances across the U.S.
Yeah, it's super popular, which I totally understand. It's an excuse to drink and dress up, you know.
That sounds
and beat
like something that
people.
needs to come to Salt Lake.
I know, Logan. I think that you need to start planning it.
All right, we've got
Done.
just under a year.
We've got this. We've got this. Although they have been known to get out of hand. I know that at one time, like 5 teenagers ended up getting beat to death by people that were in costumes.
Yeah,
Which is pretty awful.
The spirit of it is pretty wild and rowdy. It's
But people are generally there to have fun. You know?
yeah.
And so you always end up with these few assholes that are like, oh, I'm wearing a mask so I can get away with whatever I want, you know?
Yeah. And I'm just saying it right now, for Logan Young's Krampuslauf, we go by the heavy metal mosh pit rules. If somebody falls down, you pick them back up. We are all brothers.
Absolutely. We're in this together. And like a way to combat this, some of the places they have people who are dressed up wear a number so that people actually still do know who is who.
And that's pretty helpful. I've worked in the haunted house industry a lot, and often as we get close to Halloween, we get people coming in costume. The problem is, when you see somebody in costume, you don't know if you're supposed to act for them. You don't know if you're
they're
supposed
part
to be
of the crew or not.
Yeah, if they're part of the show or what's going on. So I can understand a little bit that it does help to have a little bit of a designation. You're part of the show or you're a spectator.
I think it's
or whatever.
responsible. It's responsible because of that very thing. People when their anonymity is suddenly there, they can do a lot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen, like, The Purge. You know, you don't want any of that shit happening.
Yep. Also, I'm programming a G code that's just called Arm the Peasants, just in case the purge happens. For a big CNC machine. If anyone finds the USB, press the button on the CNC machine, you get axes and machetes and everything ready to go.
Oh my god, you're such a nerd. I love it. Okay, so another fun thing that people do around the holidays, around December. I almost said Christmas, but not really Christmas. Around Krampusnacht, we'll say that. People exchange something called Krampuskarten, which are Krampus cards or postcards. And they generally have some sort of illustration of Krampus on them and say, I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but like Gruß von Krampus, which basically means greetings from Krampus. So like the Christmas cards that you would get a Krampus card instead, which is so much fucking cooler, I will say, than getting some like Noel, which, and maybe it's just, you know, the morbid macabre person inside me that's just so much happier at Halloween time that is loving this element of this dark character being advertised. Like he's a fun character, right? And for him to be present on these cards, it's so much fun. I think it's such a blast. And these aren't even a recent thing. These happened centuries ago. And you can just look in the past, like Google Krampuskarten, and you will see so much cool stuff.
Cool.
It's fantastic. So St. Nicholas Day. St. Nicholas Day is the day after Krampusnacht. So it's December 6th.
It's the hangover day.
Yes. It's Nikolastag, I guess. And basically, kids will look outside their door to see if the shoe or the boot that they left out the night before either contains presents or candy. So this is their version of a stocking that we would have like at Christmas time here, right? So they either get presents or candy if they were good kids, or they'll get a rod or like a switch, which basically is like a stick if they were bad kids. And then with that stick, their parents get to beat them. Or at least threaten them, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of parents nowadays would be like, interesting. But, you know, once again, we don't condone or support violence towards children.
Yes, raise your children responsibly, both for good and for evil. It was like the celebrations themselves were suppressed by the Catholic Church for quite a while, and in like pre-World War II Austria, the fascists of that government outlawed Krampus entirely. Yeah, and what's kind of funny about the suppression of the image of the Krampus and the celebration of this character from the Catholic Church, really, if you look at him in artwork or any of his depictions, he looks very much like a Christian demon. Yeah. I actually don't have a time machine, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if his image was either inspired by Christian demons from artwork, or if he maybe played a hand in inspiring that kind of look, the cloven hooves, the goat horns, and really just fitting it all together the way that it does. Artists like to look at one and immediately say, oh, these are the changes I would make, and it would grow from there. And so I gotta think, Krampus, maybe he is a demon.
Well, I can definitely see how they would think that, right?
Yes,
his image, he's a scary guy. At some of the earlier illustrations, and we have most of these illustrations because of those Krampus cards, which is cool. Yeah. But some of the early ones are a little bit more silly looking, and some are a little bit scarier.
Mm-hmm. But you also mentioned that, right before World War I, the fascists really... World War II, sorry, right before World War II, the fascists really had a problem with the Krampus and a lot of other things.
Probably the celebration part is my guess.
Yeah, the celebration, but also the fact that he represents the older and the other when they're trying to fit everything into one neat little box.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a representation of paganism, of older cultures, and again, a celebration of anything other than what fascism really promoted.
Yeah,
So,
and they can't control him, right?
Yeah.
He's a pagan figure. He's a reminder of old beliefs. They're trying for a new regime, a new ideal. So it makes sense that they want to suppress anything that doesn't, like Logan said, fit neatly into their little boxes.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that the Catholic Church suppressed it too because of that demonic image, like he said. But, he's kind of resurged in popularity in these recent years.
He really has in a big way.
For sure. So around 2007, 2009, the internet kind of rediscovered the old postcards, the Krampus carton. And that was a whole thing because of these cool images and more people wanted to know about it. And then a book called Krampus, the Yule Lord, was written by someone who goes by the name of Brahm. And it kind of cemented this enemy to Santa, this anti-Santa vibe, which, like we said earlier, is inaccurate. Though, reportedly, it's a pretty good book. From what I understand, Logan has read it.
I have, and it is very good. It is a modern kind of interpretation of the Krampus story. It's a novel, and it isn't holding itself to be completely true to every little step along the way.
Artistic
but
license.
It gets more right than it gets wrong, and it has some really great illustrations.
Yeah. Well, he's the artist too, right?
Yes, he is, and
Awesome.
really, I highly recommend if maybe the book isn't for you, please check out the pictures. That's really something.
Yeah.
That's something cool to see.
Definitely. And I mean, we see that a lot. Like, there's retellings are done of old creatures and old stories all the time, right? And generally, it's not about a creature that we know nothing of, like Krampus, right? At that time, people didn't know a ton about Krampus. I think it was like 2012 or something when this book was published. And so when that's the only introduction you have to this creature, of course you're going to be under the assumption that that's what this creature's like. And I think that's what happened. That's how we got he's the Christmas villain,
Yeah, he's that's a great way to put him. He's the bad guy to Christmas.
Yeah. And from that, he's appeared in the media quite a bit. There was a recent movie with Adam Scott and Toni Collette, which Logan saw, right?
Yeah.
I did not see it because I don't do well with horror movies.
And I love them.
And he loves them. But apparently it's pretty good. It's not amazing. It's not awful. So
it had a couple of good spooky moments,
Yeah.
some really cool special effects, and what I do like is that it still kept a tone of being a holiday movie. It
Yeah.
still had kind of a lesson to it, very much like the story of the Krampus itself. Yes, it's the Krampus in that one is a no fun creature at all. It is a bad news monster altogether.
he's not our fun, mischievous friend.
But it comes about because one of the characters, a small child, stops believing in Christmas.
Yeah, that'll happen. And Krampus is like, well, okay, I'll come by. I like that. That's fun. So yeah, if you like horror movies, that might be a fun one to check out for a little bit of Christmassy horror. That's another genre that I don't think has a ton of movies to its name. So if you like horror movies, that's perfect for your December, right?
Yeah.
And I know that there's like 10 other movies that have either been made or are being made. I know there's a Jim Henson one that's in production, which is cool. So my hopes are that he's a little bit more fun in that one at least.
I hope so.
little less
There is
scary.
there is an element of fun to the story of the Krampus. And really, I would like to see what the creature shop does with this.
Yeah. I mean, they do amazing work, so he's going to be cool for sure. But it'll be cool to see what they do exactly. There's also been a few graphic novels. The Krampus has appeared on TV shows like Supernatural, on Grimm, on Lost Girl, which if you guys haven't seen that, I highly recommend. It's a Canadian TV show all about supernatural creatures in the world. The main character is a succubus. It's such a cool show. I love it. Have you seen that one, Logan?
Which one? Sorry?
Lost Girl.
Lost Girl. I haven't seen Lost Girl.
Dude,
No.
it's so good. You need to watch it. You would love it.
I'll add it to the list.
Okay.
That's a good one.
And then like Venture Brothers and
Now that one I can handle right there. Really,
Love it.
as soon as that episode aired years ago, and I've encountered stories of the Krampus many more times since then, and oh boy, the scene where the Krampus shows up, the perfect depiction of him.
love it.
He's a combination of fun and anger. He doesn't speak, but, well, we don't have a whole lot of evidence of Krampus being able to speak. That's something that...
Yeah, no one ever says he did.
He's not known for his pontifications.
That we know of. Maybe he was
Yeah.
very eloquent and we just never heard about it. Maybe no
I
one
don't know.
ever asked him to talk, you know?
Oh, that's a good... no one's ever stopped to say, hey, before you take away my young child, could you maybe...
Let's have a conversation.
That's
How are you? I love that. So, what are you thinking alignment-wise, Logan?
No, alignment-wise, well, he definitely has some chaos to him.
Yes.
However, as part of a balance thing, maybe he's neutral.
Yeah, he's not evil. Like, he doesn't punish people who are good, right? So he has some sort of moral code to him, which means he's not evil. But it also means that he's not good. But at the same time, he causes a ton of, like, mischief and chaos. So he's definitely not lawful either. Which I think kind of squarely pegs him into chaotic neutral. Is my thought.
I would agree with that. I think that's a great place for him to land. He kind of does his own thing, and I don't know. He's part of a larger system that shouldn't be removed or replaced. But yeah, I think chaotic neutral is a good place to land him.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Now, kind of to fit with our other discussions of creatures, say one encounters the Krampus, what should they do? I think the first thing one should do is, I don't know, hope you weren't naughty this year.
Right. Maybe be good. That could be a good first step. I don't know. Yeah, if you encountered him, I mean, ideally, reason with him could be a good first step there.
Perhaps, yeah. He seems like an all right guy. I'd love to meet him.
Well, I'd say me too, but I don't know that I want to. But do you hear him knocking, Logan?
Oh, actually, I do.
You want to get the door?
Just 1 second. Whoa. Oh, who is this guy? Oh, yeah, okay, sure enough. Yeah, we've got hooves, we've got shaggy fur.
Holy shit.
Let's not, I won't mention the smell, but,
Okay.
yeah, come on in, have a seat. This is, I wasn't expecting this.
Neither was I.
Well,
Interesting.
I suppose, Krampus knocked is over. He's got some time. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Krampus himself has come to join us.
Hello, sir.
We were discussing just a moment ago how you've kind of made a comeback. You've seen a bit of a resurgence in popularity in recent years. Lots of movies and TV show appearances and being talked about all over the internet. How's that going for you?
Very well, thanks. Oh, when there is wickedness in this world, I gain more strength so that it can be properly rewarded. Since 2016, wickedness levels have been off the charts.
I believe that. for sure. Because like one of those recent movies, the one entitled Krampus with Adam Scott, I assume you've seen that, right?
Oh, yeah. I have all time to watch movies in the off-season. It is really a good time to relax, put my hooves up, and watch all the good holiday movies that came out.
Love that. Me too. How accurate was your portrayal in that, do you think?
Oh, well, let's put it this way. It was more accurate than any of the Resident Evil movies. It got a few things off, like my eyes. But really, I can't blame them. Special effects are impressive, yeah, but it's difficult to capture the color of burning embers on a starless night.
That's very fair.
But
and
to their credit, I do have to applaud them for including representations of the other Bells Nichols. My siblings, they get very jealous when I'm the popular one in the family.
But you kind of are, though.
Yeah, I suppose.
But how do you feel about being portrayed as a monster? Yeah, like.
Oh, well, let me ask you this. Is it monstrous to inspire adults and children to be good and kind and patient? Nay, I am the darkness that drives one towards the light. I am the taker of the unwanted, the punisher of the wicked, the devourer of oatmeal raisin cookies.
I can't blame you there. They are delicious.
That's all that is left. Yes, Sinterklaas, he always takes the chocolate chip
good
and the
ones.
Oreos, but I love the oatmeal raisin.
Good. I'm glad.
Hey, I've got a question. So we talked about how you're kind of the counterbalance to Saint Nick, to Santa Claus, and the best way that Lindsay and I described it is that it's kind of a bad cop, good cop dynamic. Is it hard to always be the bad cop? Would you ever consider being the good cop every once in a while?
You know, if it's right, it never feels like work. I always come home exhausted at the end of the night, so one really needs to put their dark heart into it if they expect results. I will tell you the most exhausting part, though. All the running and leaping. Oh, yes, there's nothing like a good Krampus laugh to get one's black Icarus blood pumping, but when you only do it once a year, you really need to remember to keep up the cardio in the off-season.
That's fair. A good advice for all of us, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
So how did you get stuck with this job?
Well, my mother, she was hell, and I try not to ride the coattails of the family. You know, nepotism, it is never becoming. But I have found my own little niche, if you will. There are wicked children, and they need someone to guide them, to either stop their wickedness or learn to be good at it and not get caught.
Fair. That is fair. So when it isn't like December 5th, 6th, what do you like to do? I assume you're in hell, or Helheim with your mom?
Yeah, where do you hang out in the off-season?
Well, I do visit my mother sometimes, but mostly I alternate between hibernating and observing. Saint Nicholas likes to watch year-round, but in this day and age, I just get a few updates from all social media accounts for naughtiness.
Ooh, that's probably really useful.
Yes, it is very convenient. It leaves me much more time for hobbies. I've recently taken up curling. Even though I'm not exactly sure what the rules are, my hooves, they don't have a problem on the ice.
I believe that. Maybe we'll see you at the Olympics in the future.
Yeah! Team Krampus! 2000... when is the next one?
I don't know. I don't keep up on sports. Let's be real here. At some points in the past, you have been banned from places.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, one too many drinks, so you do something wrong in the club, and you have to go. Oh, you mean overall banned everywhere? Yeah, those are rough times. My power, it comes from those who believe. And yes, fear a little bit. Those were rough times for everyone. Everyone was told to believe one specific thing.
For sure.
And nobody had room in their hearts for the blood-curdling fears of the Krampus.
That's fair.
But the good news is that I am back, baby!
Yes. Were you still doing your rounds during those years?
Yeah, but mostly just only going to the houses that expect to see me.
Mm-hmm.
It is mostly just popping in and saying, anybody need a beating? And no takers.
Oh, man.
Hey, I got a question. That sack you brought in, I'm guessing that's where you lug around all the bad children that you take away for a year. Now, it's fitting here in my house. How is it that you can fit all the naughty children in that one sack?
Well, are you familiar with the concept of a bag of holding? Or perhaps you've heard of a TARDIS? Yes, it's a little bit like that. You see, the opening is a magic portal to another realm. It leads to a place that isn't what you mortals might call hell, but, well, it's not very nice in there.
I believe that. So it
But
sounds...
the good news is the sack stays nice and light on the outside, so I can still bound around through the snow.
That's cool. I didn't even think about it being like a portal. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. In the old days, I had just one big sack, but it's too heavy to lug around.
Fair. Sounds like you're a fan of Doctor Who. If you know about the TARDIS, yeah?
I have time to watch all the good shows, and the BBC really knows their drama and their sci-fi.
That's very true. They do.
So you administer, not only you take children away, but you also administer beatings as punishment. Let's go into that a little bit. Now, parents don't beat their children a whole lot, in America and in the modern times, but you still seem to stick to the old ways. Now we're finding references to a gentle beating and a brutal beating. Is there a difference between the two of those? I don't know.
Why?
Yeah. Well, you see, it's all in the wrist, really. But in all seriousness, a brutal beating is usually one that leaves a person unable to remember what happened. A good bop to the head, and you're out all night. But that defeats the entire purpose. If I deliver a beating, you will be remembering it for many years to come.
I hope that I never experience that from you.
Well, if you do, you will be getting it from the very best.
And so that gentle beating, is that just like a nice little reminder of
It is almost playful. It is a little bit of a whap with the birch switch, just saying, hey, I am watching you. But no, it is not going to make anybody, cry home to their mother or anything like that.
Or maybe just cry a little bit, right?
Just a little bit, no.
Have you ever thought about being a daycare teacher?
I have actually considered this as a side business, but kids are messy.
That's true.
Maybe if I could charge parents a cleaning fee like Uber, then I would consider it. But until then, no.
Hey, someday, maybe someone will build an app for you. I like that.
Yeah.
You've got some pretty sharp teeth, and the children you take, they don't always come back. Tell us, do you eat children? And if so, how do you prepare them?
Oh, yeah, just the children I have tried to cut back. They are full of carbs and sugar. But if I am feeling indulgent, I really need to make an example, then I prefer them roasted with a generous amount of garlic and butter. Save the leftovers for on-the-go snacking.
That's fair. Garlic and butter makes everything taste better, so that's understandable.
Yeah.
For sure. With all of that stringy children eating, is dental hygiene a thing that's important to you?
Oh, yeah, very important. You see these fangs? They are over 400 years old and still razor sharp and pearly white.
They do look
Saint-
very sparkly, I must say.
Oh, thank you, danke. But Saint Nicholas likes to fill his stockings with candy and dreams of sugar plums. I can't prove it, but I'm reasonably certain he's getting paid off by the big dental lobbyist groups to keep them in business.
You know, I would not be surprised.
Hey, here's a great question we've got for you, Mr. Krampus. Tell me, which direction do you put your toilet paper?
The only right way. Overhand. I may be an ageless, wicked demon from a pit darker and older than the collective memory of humanity, but I am not that kind of monster. I have been looking into installing a bidet, though.
That's fair. They are great.
I hear that those are very thorough. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, Mr. Krampus. I don't have any more questions. Lindsay, have you got anything else?
I don't either, but we really do appreciate you coming by.
Oh, you are very welcome. Logan, I will see you next year.
Ooh.
Me? What did I do? All right,
I think
well,
you know,
there
Logan.
he goes.
Clearly.
Yeah.
You know what you
Okay.
did.
Well, I'll knock it off. I've got some time to change.
It's true. You do have a full year.
Yeah. Well, cool. That was a fun little visit. I
Very random.
maybe our show's getting more and more popular, and maybe creatures are actually hearing our podcast.
Possibly,
If any other creatures or cryptids would like to come and give a guest appearance, please call first, just so we can schedule you
Yeah,
in.
might be
But
good.
yeah, but we'd love to have somebody else on, assuming you don't murder or possess us. That would
Or
be
if
good.
you do, just do it temporarily, you know.
Yeah, be gentle about
Yeah,
it.
it'd be fine. So, I think that's probably all for us tonight.
Yeah, I think so. I know I'm just going to finish off this Glühwein and fade off into dreamland and try to remember what I did that was so wrong that would get the Krampus's attention.
Yeah, I know I'm fine, so that's great. Good luck with that.
Little Miss Goody Two Shoes Lindsay. All right.
That's my
Thank you so
terrible
much for
wig
joining us, everybody.
Yes, thank
this
you.
was a fun one. This was really fun, and I'm glad that you could join us to discuss the Krampus.
Yeah, just fun
And,
little Christmas, holiday, solstice, all of the above spirit.
Whether you're a Christmas type, a Yule type, or a get the hell out of my way, it's cold outside type.
Yeah, they're all fair.
everyone can enjoy something about this time of year.
Or not enjoy. I mean, whatever you want to do. So just as a reminder, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Folklore on the Rocks. You can find us at Twitter.
At Folklore Rocks!
We've got pictures, notes, sources on our website at folkloreontherocks.com. We do have a Patreon. We recently got our very first patron. So that's really exciting.
Yes.
And anything that you can give is immensely helpful. We would love to have some more of you guys donate. It helps us cover, hosting fees and editing costs. So it's invaluable to us, really. It'll help us be able to keep making this show. We also have a PayPal button on our website if you want to donate just one time. Patreon is a monthly thing. And as Logan talked about earlier, he's going to be doing Logan's Corner on our Patreon.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, sorry to take so long to put it together, but I'm working on some really cool projects. It's been a weird and wacky time of creating stuff, but stay tuned. We've got some neat stuff coming.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. And we do have a merch shop coming up soon, probably after the holidays is my guess, just because I'll have a little more time then and get things ironed out. So we also just ask that you rate us, leave us a review on iTunes. We are doing free stickers for you if you leave a review and you send a screenshot of it to our email address, which is mail@folkloreontherocks.com. So if you could do that, we would be grateful. We'll get some stickers out to you. It's very cool. And once we hit 100 reviews, we're going to do a bonus episode with a listener selected creature. So that's another incentive for you. So tell your friends, get the word out. It's great marketing for us, and we really, really appreciate you guys spreading the word. Thanks for listening. Tune in to us next Sunday.
Yes, please. Yes, but thank you for joining us today. Oh, I hope you had a good time. And we hope to see you, again.
Bye.
Welcome
Bye.
to Folklore on the Rocks.